folks, just a quick disclaimer. The audio on this one's a little rougher than I intended. I do apologize. Just for those who are curious, the tapping noises coming in the background about halfway through the video, that would be my dog Biscuit tap dancing around on the floor behind me saying hi. So, now you know. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, damsels and dingbats, to another episode of Animating Bob. I should really stop calling these episodes and start calling them updates. The update for today, I stated in the last video that this video we were going to go over rigging of the eyes and the mouth and such, but I got distracted and I decided to go into Bob's main body parts that I had shown you last episode here. And I wanted to turn them all into transparency. As I was working on the suit, I made a little mock-up here of what Bob's hopefully, theoretically, going to look like when I'm done putting him together. And as I was working with the suit, cutting the suit into pieces, I realized, where does the elbow go? Where is the knee? Where is this going to need to bend? And how much of it am I going to need to leave on either side of the cut so that when it does bend, there isn't just a big gap in the suit? So I was like, alright, well, let's put this on hold and we'll go work on the main body. So I spent about 3.5 hours going through and turning each of the body elements into a transparency. And oh man, I think that I'm beginning to realize how much of a project this is going to end up being. My end result is I would like to have an animation of Bob doing one of the songs out of his concert, or having one of the songs playing as he's moving around and doing such. Something, I don't know. I haven't figured that out. That's way down the road yet. I did discover a few other things that kind of set me back on my heels a little bit. Did you know that the average cartoon length is about half an hour? Yeah? Did you know that the average frames per second in a cartoon, there are, generally speaking, around 24 frames every second in that half-hour cartoon? Have you done the math? That's 1,440 frames a minute. So for a half-hour cartoon, I'm looking at over 43,000 frames. Wow. I almost set things down and went, nah, not good. But I'm not giving up. No, this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm going to keep going. But I got a lot of work ahead of me. So hopefully we got a lot of videos ahead of us. So, in total, I did 59 bone panels into transparencies for the 4 different perspectives on Bob. It totaled out to be about 59 bones, including jaws and hands. Speaking of which, I've decided that the hands and the feet are freaking horrifying. I need new hands and feet. And I didn't want to go through the hassle of trying to find hands and feet that were clear enough to use, and then trying to figure out how to tone match them to what I have already. So I have decided that Mr. Bob is going to be wearing gloves and boots. So I'll change the mock-up later, but for now, yeah, this is what I spent the last day working on. And the next thing I'm hoping to do is start transferring these into SingFig and putting them together with bones and splines and all of that neat stuff. So as I'm doing that, I will record some footage and I will go back and, I'll make a video for you. I'm probably not going to be making a lot of videos as I'm doing it, because I'm going to be busy focusing on what I'm doing and trying to understand what I'm learning. And it's very difficult for me to actually do something that takes brain cells and talk. So more than likely, as I did with this video, I'm going to record me doing it, and then I'll go back and do, the voiceover after the fact. So Now, as promised, here is some more video for you that I made immediately after putting together the footage for that last video. I realized at that point that the video was only going to be like 5 minutes long, and I wasn't happy with that. I know shorter videos are common on YouTube these days, but no. I needed to do better. So I went ahead and started the process, as you can see, of porting in all of the bones for Bob for the front perspective only. I only worked on the front perspective. I still have the rear perspective, both side perspectives, and both quarter views to put in. And wow, I mean, every stage that I work on in this, it reminds me this is not a simple little task. Not for a beginner like me. I suppose somebody who's been doing this for years and knows how to do all this, by heart. Like, it's probably super simple for them. I'm hoping it'll get that way for me at some point. But this gave me an appreciation of what's involved in just this, simple little two-dimensional paper cut style animation. I can't even imagine the process you need to go through for 3D imagination. Yeah, that'd be cool. 3D imagination. No, 3D animation. So anyway, as you can see with the skull, or the lower jaw there, I've already taken the pieces, like in our last video where I took the jaw in and I distorted it. And here what I'm doing is I'm taking the... I was trying to set up the skeleton from the bones perspective. I was trying to get the bones to connect from the top down, my control points and all of that. But I was having difficulty of trying to figure out how to link the upper skull to the jaw and to the torso. And, because I could connect it to the torso and then down the spine to the hip. But I didn't know at this point that you could create two child bones off of the one master bone. I thought it was master bone, child bone, child bone, child bone. And it was just pretty much a straight line. So I thought I had to have two completely different bones. But I couldn't figure out how to connect two bones to one bone, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, eventually I did discover that you can, in fact, branch a bone off into multiple other child bones, and that ended up solving my problem. But at this point, I couldn't figure out, I thought I had to choose, do I make Bob talk? Can Bob move his jaw? Or does the rest of Bob work? It even got to the point where I just got rid of everything I had done, and I decided that I was going to put in one bone at a time. Instead of putting in the whole skeleton and trying to figure out how to run a bone through the whole skeleton, I would put in one bone, and then I would use... Okay, I really need to figure out another way to say this. When I say... Alright, from this point forward... Bob is Bob. And when I say bones, I mean the things in Synfig that are used to link the pieces of Bob together. Let's see if that works. I put in all the pieces of Bob initially and tried to link him with bones, and I couldn't figure it out, how to get him together as a complete skeleton. So then I went back... I got rid of all my progress, and I just put in his skull, his jaw, and his torso, as you can see here. And then I tried linking bones between those. At this point, I was solely focused on the how do I make multiple bones come off of one part of Bob. And I ended up having to take time to do some research on it. I definitely, at this point, felt like this should be possible. I'm missing something. Maybe I jumped the gun on starting to put him together. and I skipped something. I didn't learn. I didn't go far enough in my learning, and there was something else I needed to learn. So I actually, at this point, took the time to go back and do the research, and that's when I got distracted. While looking online to see if I could figure out how to get these bones working properly, I found something called Deformation Animation. And it looked like it was using the same principles I was using, putting bones in and using the bones to twist the image and rotate different parts of the image. And I was like, okay, this looks like it's a lot easier than the way I'm trying to do it. So I watched the videos. I started a new project and I pulled up Bob and his suit. I figure if I don't got to work with the skeleton and I can just work directly with the suit, let's skip out a couple steps here and let's just go in and use this deformation skeleton to move Bob around. And at first, it looked like it was working. And, well, it didn't work. Well, it does work. It just did not suit the style of animation I was going for. So I did more research. And eventually I learned everything I needed to learn. And I got to the point where Bob is now a fully posable, well, basically a fully posable skeleton. I've got his controls for his eyes set up and his jaw, like in the last video. And now I can move his different body parts around. I got to be careful not to descale them, make them the wrong size. There's still some gap between them when I rotate them, but it can be used for my animation purposes. So now all I have to do is go back and do everything that I just did for the other 4 views or 5 views or however many other views I got. So, yeah. Let's get started on that. Okay, I began working on the side profile, cutting out bones, making transparencies. Then I realized I've done this already. And I went through and I started overlaying what I had already done onto the side skeleton like I did with the front. And as I was going, I was trying to overlay the bones onto the skeleton like I had learned how to do earlier. I figured I could just, put the skeleton together, then overlay the bones on it. But the side profile was a little more difficult because I couldn't access both. Like with the front profile, I could access the left arm, the right leg. I could just run the skeleton straight down through everything. But with the left arm and the left leg hidden behind the skeleton, well, first of all, the skeleton didn't come with a left leg and a left arm. I just kind of had to make my own. And then I had to lay them into where I could view them so that I could actually run the skeleton through them. But I was having difficulty categorizing stuff like you can lump stuff together and put them into folders. You could group them, is what they call it. And I was grouping things, and I thought I had the skeleton running properly, but for some reason, it wasn't working as well in the side perspective as it had in the front perspective. So I took some time, and I stopped. I figured I just needed to refresh myself. Maybe I was missing a step or forgetting to do something. So I took some time to go over the bones again, and I discovered a third method of animating which still used the bones, but used them in a completely different manner. I didn't have to run a skeleton all the way through Bob. All I had to do was put points on the image itself directly, and then I could rotate the portions of the image, and somehow there's a system in here where when you move one joint, everything below it automatically moves when you move the joint. Anything below the layer that you're moving moves when you move that joint. And so basically, I guess it's good that I learned it and that I have a small grasp on how bones work. But with this method of animating, I no longer need to use any of that. So I think I've found the method that I'm going to use for my animations. It's still considered a cutout animation, but it's not nearly as involved when it comes to setting up the models and so forth. So this is it's called Transformation Animation, I believe. So I decided at this point what I was going to do was go in and animate, or use the you have to set the rotation points up on the joints for the model. So I figure, all right, I'm going to go into my front view model, and I'm going to get rid of the skeleton that I've got in here, and I will just put these transformation rotation bones in. It's a lot easier. I've decided this is the method I'm going to use, so I can get rid of all the old bone structure. And then I remembered something that I had viewed a couple days ago about switches. They have something called switches where you can pre-set up, say for example, if you have a smiley face, if you want to change the smile into a frown or into a scowl, you can have the different animations for the different facial expressions, and then you have them in a list, and then you select one, and it automatically changes it for you. So once I got all the switches, or once I got all the rotation points put in, I figured, okay, well, when I'm animating, I'm going to want Bob to be able to turn his head, or turn at the torso, so I'm going to need to upload and bring in the other aspects of the skeleton anyway. So instead of having 6 different skeletons, if I overlay them properly, I should be able to learn how to do the switches. And then, for example, if I want Bob to turn his head to the left, I should be able to hit the skull switch and select left skull, and it will make it look like he's turned his skull to the left. Or I can do the same at the waist, different rotations for the hands. I still need gloves and boots. I'm not happy with the hands, but I did realize that some of my components, the skull here, wasn't quite right. Some of the torsos, when I cut them and edited them, the neck, the spine, did not go all the way up and reach the skull, so I had to go in and redo those pieces. But what I'm doing here is I'm overlaying the cutouts, because I guess when I edited the bones, I didn't save them to the proper scale. So I have the overlay of the original image, and I'm overlaying each of the bones on top of the image so that I can make sure that I get the scale of the bones roughly accurate. I wasn't trying to be perfect, but I wanted them all to be... That way when Bob's moving around, his forearm isn't growing and shrinking, and his head isn't changing shape. So I spent a good couple hours doing that. And see, that's the point there where I realized, like, well, my spine doesn't even go all the way up to my freaking skull on those 3. So I had to do some editing on that. I am currently at the point now where I have all of the skeletons on one canvas. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to overlay the rotation points on the front. That's going to be my base image, is the front. It's probably what I'm going to use for most of my animations, is the front image. And then I need to figure out how the switches work so that I can make switches for all of the other body parts. In theory, and I don't know if this is how this works yet, but if it does, I should end up with one skeleton that I can use rotation points to rotate the body parts, and if I want him to turn his head, I should just be able to hit the head switch and make his head move one direction or the other and so forth. I should end up with all of these skeletons in one. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do next. I will go over with you in the next video whether I was successful with that or not. You see already I've gotten distracted several times. I've changed as I've learned different things or easier ways to do things, I've changed the direction that I'm heading. This is an evolving project for me as I'm learning. So, I can't really tell you what's going to happen in the next video because I have no freaking clue. I can tell you what I want to do, but we'll see if that's what actually happens. This is going to be a lot shorter video than normal. Most of these probably will be fairly short, even though the video does consist of, basically going over what I have been doing for like the last 8 freaking hours or the last 3 days. It's probably only going to be anywhere from a 10 to 20 minute video. So, kind of expect that in the future. But for this one, we're going to go ahead and bring it to a close. And as always, I have been your host, Jim Renevion, saying stay safe, have fun, I'm out.